I am withdrawing my money from the account. You already gave yours to your wife, I told my son Caleb, keeping my voice as steady as I could manage in that moment. My hands were shaking as I gripped the phone, but my words came out clear, leaving no room for doubt. On the other end of the line, I heard his breathing hitch, that sound of someone about to explode but trying to hold it together. But Mom, my wife still needs $300,000. She's already on her way in an Uber, he shouted with an indignation that pierced my chest like a knife. I remained silent, feeling my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst right out of my ribcage. Then, I heard the doorbell of my apartment ring. I hung up the phone. I walked toward the door with heavy legs, feeling like every step was leading me toward a cliff from which there would be no return. When I opened it, there she was, Veronica, my daughter-in-law. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress that must have cost more than 3 months of my rent, high heels that looked like an insult to gravity, and a designer handbag I recognized because I had seen it in a fashion magazine she accidentally left on my coffee table the last time she visited. She walked in without waiting for an invitation, with that arrogance I knew all too well, looking me up and down as if I were a stain on her perfect world. I was stunned, not by her expensive clothes or her attitude. I was stunned because, in that moment, watching her walk into my humble apartment with all that haughtiness, I understood with absolute clarity that I had been a fool for 2 whole years. My name is Eleanor. I am 63 years old, and I have been a widow for 5 years. My husband, Arthur, God rest his soul, worked his entire life as an accountant for a mid-sized firm. We didn't earn a fortune, but he was a cautious man, the kind who saved every dollar thinking about the future. When he died of a sudden heart attack, he left me $800,000 in savings, a fortune for someone like me, who always lived within my means, without luxuries, without excess. That money represented 20 years of sacrifices, of not going out to dinner, of buying clothes on the clearance rack at Macy's, of canceled vacations. It was the legacy of a good man who wanted to make sure I would be okay when he was no longer here. And I, as a grateful wife, guarded that money as if it were sacred. I lived on my small Social Security check, worked part-time at a neighborhood bookstore to avoid touching the savings, and promised myself that the money would only be used in a true emergency. I have a son, Caleb, 35 years old, an engineer, a good kid, or at least, that's what I thought. I raised him alone after my husband passed, and I thought we had maintained that special connection between mother and son, that unbreakable trust, until 2 years ago, when he met Veronica at a work conference in Las Vegas. They got married 6 months later. From day one, I knew that woman was pure poison. The first time she came to my apartment, Veronica walked in looking at everything with a barely disguised grimace of contempt. She touched the curtains in my living room as if she were going to catch a disease. "How long has it been since you redecorated, Eleanor?" she asked with that sweet voice she used to mask her cruelty. "It must be hard to keep up with trends at your age." I felt the blow, but I smiled. I have always been one to swallow my pride to keep the peace in the family. Caleb laughed nervously and changed the subject, but I saw how she looked at him, how she squeezed his hand, as if telling him, "Do you see where your mother lives?" In the following weeks, the comments continued, that my clothes were too outdated, that my cooking was too simple, just meat and potatoes, that my apartment was too small to host guests. Each phrase was a small but constant needle. Caleb started visiting me less. When he did come, he brought excuses from Veronica. She was busy, she was tired, she had appointments. It was never "she doesn't want to come because she thinks your mother is beneath her." But I knew. A mother always knows. 6 months after the wedding, Caleb arrived at my house one afternoon, looking worried. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important," he said as he sat on my old sofa, the same one where I used to hold him when he was a boy and had nightmares. My heart raced. I thought he would tell me Veronica was pregnant or that they were having marital problems. I never imagined what would come next. "Mom, Veronica and I are thinking about the future, about buying a bigger house in the suburbs, about having kids soon. But sometimes unexpected expenses come up, emergencies. You know how life is." He paused, biting his lip like he did when he was a child asking for permission to do something he knew he shouldn't. "I was thinking, what would you think if we opened a joint bank account, just as a precaution? so that if I ever need urgent help, I can access it without bothering you every moment. You know I would never touch that money unless it was absolutely necessary." I stared at him, searching his eyes for the boy we raised with so much love. "How much money are you thinking?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I don't know, maybe $300,000. It's just in case, Mom. I have my own savings, but you never know. And this way, you don't have to worry about being available if something urgent happens with me." The trap was perfectly set. It appealed to my motherly love, to my fear of not being there when my son needed me. I, who had guarded that money so carefully for 5 years, agreed, because he was my son, because I trusted him, because I never imagined that behind that request was Veronica's hand, manipulating the strings like a master puppeteer. The following week, we went to the bank together. Caleb hugged me when we walked out. He said, "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." I felt good, useful, important. I thought I was helping my son build his future. How stupid I was. The first 2 months after opening the joint account, nothing happened. Caleb called me every week. He asked how I was, if I needed anything. I felt calm, thinking that perhaps I had misjudged Veronica, that maybe she was just a modern woman with different tastes than mine. How naive! The first withdrawal came on a Tuesday afternoon. I received a notification from the bank on my iPhone. Withdrawal made. $15,000. I felt a knot in my stomach. I called Caleb immediately. "Son, I saw you withdrew money from the account. Is everything okay? Did something happen?" His voice sounded normal, relaxed. "Oh, yeah, Mom. We had a problem with the car. The transmission needed urgent repair. You know how these dealerships are. They charge a fortune, but it's resolved. Don't worry." I wanted to believe him. I told myself that's what the money was for real emergencies. But something in my chest didn't feel right. 2 weeks later, another withdrawal. $20,000. This time Caleb got ahead of it and called me before I could ask. "Mom, you're going to get a notification. Veronica had a health issue. Nothing grave, but she needed some very expensive medical tests. You know how the healthcare system is. The deductibles and out-of-pocket costs are insane." I accepted the explanation, but the knot in my stomach started to tighten. The next month it was $30,000. Repairs on the house. Mom, a pipe burst and almost flooded the whole downstairs. It was an emergency. Then $40,000. The car insurance rates hiked up, and we had to pay a lump sum. Then $22,000. Veronica's work expenses. She needed a new professional wardrobe for some high-stakes meetings. Each time the explanation came faster, more rehearsed, emptier. In 4 months, $127,000 had disappeared from that account. One afternoon, my friend Ruth came over for coffee at my apartment. Ruth has known me for 30 years. She is one of those friends who tells you the truth even if it hurts. "Eleanor, I saw your daughter-in-law the other day at the mall downtown," she said while stirring her coffee. "She was walking out of a luxury boutique with like 6 bags. And these weren't sale bags, Eleanor. We are talking about brands where a pair of shoes costs what I earn in a month." I felt the blood rush to my face. "Maybe she was buying gifts," I said, defending the indefensible. Ruth looked at me with that expression that says, "Are you seriously listening to yourself? Eleanor, wake up. That woman is using your son to drain your account. How much money have you put in there?" I didn't want to answer. Ruth sighed and took my hand. "Friend, go to the bank. Check the transaction history. You don't have to say anything to Caleb yet. Just look. Please." That night I couldn't sleep. Ruth's words spun in my head like a broken record. The next morning, I went to the bank. I asked for a detailed statement of the last 4 months. When the teller handed me the papers, I felt my hands shaking. I sat on a bench in the lobby and started reading. What I saw knocked the wind out of me. Withdrawals at beauty salons, $12,000. Expensive steakhouses, $8,000. Designer clothing stores, $23,000. Spa and facial treatments, $6,000. Jewelry, $15,000. Hairstylist, $4,000. Shoes, $7,000. Perfumes, $3,000. There was no car repair, no medical tests, no broken pipe, just luxuries, whims, pure vanity. I felt like I was drowning right there, in the middle of the bank, surrounded by people going about their normal lives while mine was crumbling. I put the papers in my purse with trembling hands and walked out onto the street. I walked aimlessly for an hour, crying, feeling the rage grow in my chest like a wildfire. When I got home, I called Caleb. "I need you to come over. Now. It's urgent." His voice sounded worried. "What's wrong, Mom? Are you okay? Come. Just come." He arrived half an hour later, looking scared. I was seated at the kitchen table with the bank statements in front of me. "Sit down," I told him with a voice I didn't recognize as my own. Caleb sat down slowly, looking at the papers. His face changed. It went from concern to guilt in seconds. "Mom, I can't explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted him. "Explain that you lied to me? Explain that your wife spent $127,000 of my money on clothes, shoes, and beauty salons, while you told me about medical emergencies and broken pipes?" Caleb lowered his gaze. I saw him bite his lip, that guilty child gesture that no longer gave me tenderness but disgust. "Mom, Veronica needs to feel good about herself. She comes from a wealthy family. She is used to certain things. I want her to be happy." I felt something break inside me. "And what am I, Caleb? Am I your wife's personal ATM? Am I the stupid old woman who works so she can buy $1,000 shoes? It's not like that, Mom. It's just that sometimes she gets stressed, and buying things relaxes her. It's not that serious." "Not that serious," I repeated, feeling my voice rise in volume. "Your father killed himself working for 20 years to save that money. He died of a heart attack because he worked 12-hour days to make sure I would be okay. And you give it away so your wife can relax, buying purses that cost more than my rent?" Caleb stood up from the chair, annoyed. "You know what, Mom? You're exaggerating. Veronica is my wife, my family. You have $800,000 saved. You're not going to die from helping us a little. You are selfish." That word hit me like a slap. Selfish. I, who had lived with the minimum to keep that money safe. I, who worked in a bookstore at 63 to avoid touching the savings. I, who denied myself even a coffee on the street to economize. Selfish. "Get out of my house," I told him with a calm that surprised me. "Right now. Get out." Caleb stood in the middle of my living room, looking at me as if I were a stranger. "Are you kicking me out? Me, your son?" His voice had that tone of victimhood that Veronica had perfected in him. "Yes, I am kicking you out. And tomorrow, I am going to the bank to close that joint account. I am not going to allow you to keep lying to my face while your wife spends the money your father sweated for 20 years to earn." He laughed, but it was a bitter laugh, full of contempt. "Fine, Mom. Keep your money. Stay alone in this sad apartment, clinging to your bills as if they were the only thing you have in life. I have a family. I have a wife who loves me. I don't need you." Every word was a dagger. He left, slamming the door so hard the walls vibrated. I stood there, in the middle of the silence, feeling the tears run down my cheeks. That night I didn't sleep. I spent it looking at the ceiling, thinking about all the moments when Caleb was a sweet boy, when he hugged me and told me I was the best mom in the world. Where had that boy gotten lost? At what moment had Veronica turned him into this man who looked at me as if I were an obstacle on his path to happiness? The next morning, I went to the bank as soon as it opened. I told the teller I wanted to close the joint account and transfer all the remaining money to a new account, solely in my name. She checked the system, and her face changed. "Ma'am, I regret to inform you that this account was emptied yesterday at 8 in the evening. The current balance is $230. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. How? Who made the withdrawal? It was an online transfer authorized by Mr. Caleb Miller. $172,800 transferred to another account. I grabbed the desk to keep from falling. He had done it. My own son had emptied the account after our fight, as an act of revenge. Like a final spit in my face, I walked out of the bank feeling like I was walking through a nightmare. $300,000. All the money I had put in that account had disappeared in less than 5 months. I got home and sat on the sofa, staring into space. The phone rang. It was Ruth. "And? Did you go to the bank?" I told her everything between sobs. Ruth stayed silent for a few seconds and then said with a firm voice, Eleanor, listen to me closely. You still have $500,000 in your personal account. Go right now and make sure that account is completely armored. Change the passwords. Remove any authorization. Do whatever is necessary, because this isn't going to end here. She was right. I followed her advice immediately. That same afternoon, I changed all the access codes. I requested to be notified of any movement via text and email, and left clear instructions that no one but me could perform operations on that account. For the next 3 days, Caleb didn't call me. I didn't look for him either. The pain in my chest was so great I could barely breathe. I spent my time sitting at home, looking at old photos of when he was a boy, wondering where I had failed as a mother. On the 4th day, I received a text message from an unknown number. Mother-in-law, we need to talk. Veronica. I felt a chill. That woman had the nerve to write to me after everything. I didn't reply. An hour later, my phone rang. It was her. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. She called again, and again, and again. Finally, I answered. What do you want, Veronica? Her voice sounded sweet, almost pleading. Eleanor, I know things got tense with Caleb, but we are family, right? We should resolve this like adults. I have nothing to resolve with you. You two stole $300,000 from my account. Stole? What a strong word, Eleanor. Caleb had legal access to that account. He just took what we needed. Besides, you have much more money saved. It's not like you're going to starve. My blood boiled. That money is mine. My husband saved it by working until he dropped. It is not a fund for you to buy luxury handbags and get your nails done. Veronica sighed, as if I were a stupid child who didn't understand things. Look, Eleanor, Caleb and I are building a life together. A life of quality. You already lived your life. You already had your time. Now it's our turn. Don't you want to see your son happy? Or are you so selfish that you prefer to die with a pile of money in the bank while your only son struggles to get ahead? My son is an engineer. He earns a good salary. He is not struggling for anything. He is being manipulated by a leech who uses him to rob his own mother. There was a silence on the other end. When Veronica spoke again, her voice was no longer sweet. It was cold, threatening. Be careful with what you say, old woman. Caleb is my husband now. I am his priority, not you. If you keep being so difficult, you are going to end up completely alone. No son, no family, no one. Is that what you want? I hung up the phone with my hands shaking with rage. That night, Caleb called me. His voice sounded tired. Mom, Veronica told me you guys spoke. Why do you have to be so hard on her? She just wants to get along with you. Caleb, your wife threatened me. She told me I'm going to end up alone if I don't keep giving her money. Mom, you're exaggerating. Veronica would never do that. You're making things up because you're resentful. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Resentful? Resentful for what? For having been robbed by my own son. No one robbed you. That money was in a joint account. I had the right to use it. You know what? I'm tired of this. Veronica was right. You are a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing me happy. And he hung up. I stayed there, holding the phone, feeling something die inside me. 2 weeks of absolute silence passed. I kept going to work at the bookstore, pretending everything was fine, smiling at customers while inside I was crumbling. Ruth came to visit me almost every day. She forced me to eat, to go out for walks, to not lock myself in my pain. Eleanor, you did the right thing. You set boundaries. Now he has to decide what kind of man he wants to be. I nodded, but deep down I wished the phone would ring, that Caleb would call asking for forgiveness, saying it had been a mistake, that Veronica had manipulated him. But the phone remained silent. One afternoon, while I was shelving books at the store, I received a text from Caleb. It just said, I need to talk to you urgently. It's about money. Please, Mom. My heart raced. I thought maybe he had come to his senses, that he was coming to apologize. I replied, come to the house tonight at 7. He arrived on time, but he didn't come alone. Veronica was with him. When I opened the door and saw her standing there with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I knew they weren't coming to ask for forgiveness. They were coming to ask for more. They walked into my apartment as if they owned the place. Veronica was wearing an ivory dress that looked fresh out of an expensive boutique. heels clicking on my humble floor like a constant reminder of the difference between us. Caleb had dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, defeated. "Mom, thanks for seeing us," he said with a voice that tried to sound casual but cracked at the edges. I didn't answer. I just stared at them, waiting for them to say what they had to say. Veronica sat on my sofa as if she were posing for a magazine cover, crossed her legs with studied elegance, and gave me a smile that turned my stomach. "Eleanor, I know we've had our differences, but we are family. And families forgive each other, right?" I remained standing, arms crossed. "Tell me why you came. I don't have time for theater." Caleb cleared his throat, nervous. "Mom, the situation is that, well, Veronica and I have been thinking about our future. We want to buy a bigger house, in a better neighborhood. We already found one we love, but we need to complete the down payment." I felt the rage starting to boil in my veins. Veronica leaned forward, with that expression of someone about to ask for a small and insignificant favor. "We need $200,000, Eleanor. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but think of it as an investment in your son's future, in the future of your grandchildren, when we have them." I laughed. It was a dry, bitter laugh that came from my soul. "You are asking me for $200,000 after having spent $300,000 on beauty salons and shoes?" Veronica's smile hardened. "We used that money for legitimate expenses of our married life. Caleb had a right to that money. It was in a joint account. Now we are asking for help for something important, something that benefits the whole family." "I don't have a family," I said, looking directly at Caleb. "My family died the day my son decided his capricious wife was more important than the woman who gave birth to him and raised him alone for years." Caleb lowered his gaze. I saw how he clenched his fists, how he struggled internally between loyalty to his mother and the control Veronica exerted over him. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're just asking for help. You have the money. You're not going to miss it." "I'm not going to miss it," I repeated, feeling my voice tremble with contained fury. "I am 63 years old. Caleb, I work in a bookstore earning minimum wage because I don't want to touch that money. That money is my security, my backup for when I am older and can't work. It is the only thing I have left of your father, the only thing that gives me peace of mind to sleep at night." Veronica let out a huff of impatience. "Please, Eleanor, you have $500,000. What are you going to do with so much money at your age? Take it to the grave? Let's be realistic. You already lived your life. You already had your house, your husband, your son. Now it's our time. Give us the money and stop being so selfish." I stared at her, this woman who had entered our life like a tornado, destroying everything in her path. "Get out of my house. Now." Veronica laughed, as if I had told a joke. "Seriously? You're going to kick us out just like that? Caleb, say something to your mother." Caleb finally looked up. For a second, I saw a flash of the boy he used to be, of the son who hugged me when he was afraid. But that flash went out as quickly as it appeared. "Mom, if you don't help us with this, I don't know if we can continue having a relationship. Veronica is my wife. I have to be on her side." The words hit me like rocks. "Then I guess we have nothing more to talk about." Veronica stood up from the sofa with slow, theatrical movements. "What a pity, Eleanor. Truly a pity. But let the record show this was your decision. You chose money over your own son." They left, leaving the door open on purpose, as a final gesture of contempt. I sat on the sofa where Veronica had been sitting a moment ago, and I cried like I hadn't cried since my husband's funeral. That night, Ruth came to see me. I told her everything while I made tea in my small kitchen. She listened in silence and then said, "Eleanor, you did the right thing. What they are doing is financial abuse. They are manipulating you emotionally to extract money from you. But he is my son, Ruth. My only son. I know, friend. But sometimes motherly love also means setting boundaries, even if it hurts, because if you keep giving them money, it will never end. There will always be another house, another car, another whim of Veronica's." I knew she was right, but that didn't make it hurt any less. The following days were an ordeal. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, hoping it was Caleb, but it was never him. 1 week after that visit, I received another text message. This time it was from Caleb. Mom, Veronica is pregnant. We are going to be parents. More than ever, we need your financial support. Please. Think about it. It's your grandchild. I read the message over and over, feeling the emotions swirl in my chest. A grandchild. I was going to be a grandmother. Part of me wanted to call him immediately, cry with happiness, offer him all the support in the world. But another part, the part that had learned to distrust in these last few months, told me something wasn't right. I called Ruth. He says Veronica is pregnant, that they need money for the baby. Ruth sighed on the other end of the line. And did you believe him? I don't know. Why would he lie to me about something like that? Eleanor, he already lied to you about car repairs, about medical emergencies, about broken pipes. Why would a pregnancy be different? It is the perfect card to manipulate you. She was right. I didn't reply to the message. 2 days later, Caleb appeared at the bookstore where I work. He walked in right before we closed, looking desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. I looked at him from behind the counter, feeling my heart break, seeing how haggard he looked. What do you want, Caleb? It's Veronica. She is 3 months pregnant. We've had a lot of medical expenses, vitamins, special consultations. We need $50,000 to cover everything. $50,000 for vitamins? I asked with disbelief. They are special treatments. Mom, it's a high-risk pregnancy. Please, it's your grandchild. Don't you care about your grandchild? I felt something twist in my stomach. Caleb, if Veronica is really pregnant and has a high-risk pregnancy, she needs to be in a hospital under medical supervision, not buying $50,000 treatments. He turned red, furious. Now it turns out you know more than the doctors? You know what? Forget it. Forget everything. I don't know why I came to ask for help from a bitter old woman who prefers to die alone with her money than help her own family. He walked out of the store, leaving me shaking behind the counter. My boss, Mrs. Patterson, who had heard everything from the back room, came out looking worried. Eleanor, are you okay? No, Mrs. Patterson, I am not okay. That night, sitting in my empty apartment, I made a decision. I was going to investigate. I needed to know the truth. The next day I called Ruth and asked her to accompany me to do something I never thought I would do, follow my own daughter-in-law. I know it sounds desperate, maybe even pathetic, but I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if there really was a pregnancy, or if it was just another lie in the long list of manipulations. Ruth agreed, without judging me. Sometimes you have to do uncomfortable things to discover the truth, friend. Let's go. I knew Veronica had a very specific routine on Tuesday afternoons. Caleb had mentioned it to me months ago, when we still talked normally. Veronica went to her favorite salon downtown at 3 in the afternoon, religiously. Ruth and I arrived at the place at 2:30. We sat in a coffee shop across the street with a perfect view of the salon entrance. At 3 o'clock sharp, like a Swiss watch, Veronica arrived. But she didn't arrive alone. She arrived accompanied by 2 friends, all dressed as if they were going to a runway show, laughing loudly. What caught my attention was her clothes. High-waisted white pants that fitted perfectly to her body, and a cropped top that revealed a completely flat stomach. Ruth, look, I whispered, pointing discreetly. That is the 3-month baby bump. Ruth squinted, observing carefully. Eleanor, that woman is no more pregnant than I am. That belly is completely flat. I felt the rage start to boil in my chest, but I held back. I needed more evidence. We followed them discreetly when they left the salon 3 hours later. We saw them walk into an elegant restaurant, one of those places where the cheapest entree costs $50. Through the window, we saw them order mimosas, alcohol. A pregnant woman with a high-risk pregnancy, drinking alcohol. We have enough, said Ruth, squeezing my hand. That woman is lying to you blatantly. We returned to my apartment, and I sat on the sofa, feeling the deception reveal itself before my eyes with crystal clarity. There was no pregnancy. There never was. It was just another manipulation tactic, the lowest and most despicable card they could play, using the illusion of a grandchild to extract money from me. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed thinking about how to confront them, what to say, how to handle this situation without destroying myself completely in the process. The next morning, I took a stand. I went to the bank and asked to speak with the branch manager. I need to review all the accounts I have here and make sure no one else has access to them, I told him firmly. The manager, a man in his 40s named Sergio, looked at me with concern. Have you had any trouble, Mrs. Eleanor? Let's just say I've learned to be more cautious with my money. Sergio reviewed the entire system meticulously. Your $500,000 are safe in your personal account. No one else has access. The joint account you had was closed, as you requested. Is there anything else I can do for you? I breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, I want any attempt to open a new account, any loan or credit application in my name, to require my physical presence here at the bank, with ID and a password that only I know. Sergio nodded, taking notes. Excellent idea. What will be your password? I thought for a moment. Arthur, the name of my late husband, the man who worked 20 years to secure my future. Sergio set up the entire security system. When I walked out of the bank, I felt more protected, but also sadder. I was taking security measures against my own son. That afternoon, while I was working at the bookstore, an older man walked in. He was a frequent customer, always kind, always with a smile. Mrs. Eleanor, you look worried. Is everything okay? He asked, while browsing a book of poetry. I don't know what came over me in that moment. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the need to vent to someone neutral, but I told him everything. The man listened in silence, nodding occasionally. When I finished, he closed the book he was holding and looked at me with wise eyes. Ma'am, my wife and I went through something similar with our daughter years ago. It wasn't easy, but we learned that sometimes the greatest love is knowing how to say no. You are doing the right thing, protecting what is yours. A son who truly loves you will understand that eventually. His words gave me unexpected comfort. That night, I received 5 missed calls from Caleb. I didn't answer any. Then the texts arrived. Mom, answer please. We need to talk urgently. Veronica needs expensive tests. Mom, you can't ignore us like this. Okay, if you want to be like that, fine. I turned off the phone and went to sleep. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The next morning, when I turned on the phone, I had 20 messages from Caleb and 10 missed calls. The last message said, Mom, I can't take it anymore. Veronica says if I don't get the money for the house, she's going to leave me. Please, help me. I'm begging you. I read the message and felt something I hadn't felt before. Absolute clarity. I wrote a short and direct response. Caleb, there is no pregnancy. I saw Veronica yesterday drinking champagne in a restaurant with a flat stomach. I am not giving you any more money. If your wife leaves you for that, then she never loved you. She only loved your access to my bank account. When you are ready to speak with honesty, I will be here. But no more lies, no more manipulations, no more money. I sent the message and turned off the phone again. Half an hour later, someone pounded on my door so hard I thought they were going to knock it down. I looked through the peephole. It was Caleb. He looked unhinged, furious, desperate. Mom, open the door. We have to talk. I didn't open. Caleb, go home. I'm not opening until you calm down. Open the damn door! How dare you spy on my wife? How dare you follow her like she's a criminal? I saw her drinking alcohol in a restaurant. Caleb, a woman with a high-risk pregnancy, doesn't drink alcohol. I am not stupid. There was silence on the other side of the door. Then I heard his voice, lower, more broken. Mom, please. If I don't get that money, Veronica is going to leave me. She already told me. She says she can't be with a man who can't give her the life she deserves. I felt my heart breaking. Caleb, don't you see what she's doing? She is blackmailing you. A wife who truly loves you doesn't leave you because you can't buy her a luxury house. You don't understand anything. You are from another generation. Things are different now. Things are not different. Son, true love never changes. And what Veronica feels for you is not love. I heard him hit the door with his hand, frustrated. Fine, Mom. Fine. Keep your money. But when I get divorced, when I am alone and destroyed, I want you to know it was your fault. You could have saved my marriage, and you chose not to. His words hurt me, but I stood firm. Caleb, whether your marriage is saved or destroyed does not depend on my money. It depends on whether you are willing to see the truth, or if you prefer to keep living in the lie that Veronica built for you. I heard him walk away down the hall, his heavy steps resonating in the empty building. I sat on the floor, my back against the door, and cried. I cried for my son, for the boy he used to be, for the manipulated man he had become. I cried for myself, for having to choose between protecting myself and pleasing my only son. 3 weeks passed, without news from Caleb. 3 weeks of absolute silence that weighed on my chest like stones. Every morning I woke up expecting a message, a call, some sign that my son was still there, on the other side of the abyss that had opened between us. But nothing came. Ruth came to see me almost every day after my shift at the bookstore. She forced me to go out for walks, to eat something decent, to not sink into sadness. Eleanor, you did the right thing. Now he has to process all this and decide what kind of man he wants to be, she repeated, while we drank coffee in my small kitchen. I nodded, but inside I felt empty, as if a vital part of myself had been ripped out. One Thursday afternoon, Mrs. Patterson called me to her office at the bookstore. Eleanor, there is someone here asking for you. She says it's urgent. My heart raced. I thought it was Caleb. I walked out of the office and saw a stranger waiting for me at the counter. She was elegant, in her 50s, with perfectly styled hair and expensive but discreet clothes. Mrs. Eleanor? She asked with a kind smile. Yes. How can I help you? The woman looked around, making sure no one else was listening. My name is Catherine. I am Veronica's mother. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. Veronica's mother. What the hell was she doing here? Can we talk in private? Catherine asked with a soft but firm voice. I looked at Mrs. Patterson, who nodded, giving me permission. We walked out of the bookstore and walked to a small park 2 blocks away. We sat on a bench under a tree. Catherine took a deep breath before speaking. Mrs. Eleanor, I came because I need to apologize to you, and because I need to tell you the truth about my daughter. I stayed silent, not knowing what to expect. Catherine took a handkerchief out of her purse and twisted it in her hands nervously. Veronica is my only daughter. My husband and I raised her with all the luxuries we could give her, maybe too many. From a young age, she learned she could get whatever she wanted if she manipulated enough, if she cried enough, if she threatened enough. When she turned 25, my daughter had already destroyed the finances of 3 different boyfriends. One of them ended up with debts so large he had to file for bankruptcy. We helped him get out of the problem, but the damage was already done. Catherine looked at me with eyes full of tears. My husband and I finally told her enough. We cut off her access to our money. We told her she had to learn to live on what she earned herself. It was the hardest decision of our lives, but it was necessary. When she met Caleb, I thought maybe she had changed. His job pays well. He seemed like a good man, stable. But a few days ago, Veronica came to our house asking for $200,000 for the down payment on a house. When we told her no, she told us the whole story, the joint account, the $300,000 she already spent, the supposed pregnancy. I felt the rage boiling in my veins again. The supposed pregnancy, I repeated. Catherine shook her head, shame in every gesture. There is no pregnancy, Mrs. Eleanor. My daughter is lying to your son. And when I told her that was unforgivable, that she was playing with the emotions of a good man and his mother, do you know what she told me? She told me you were a stupid old woman who deserved to be scammed for keeping so much money without using it. The words hit me like slaps, Catherine continued, her voice breaking. I came to find you because I needed to warn you. Veronica is planning something. I heard a phone conversation she had with a friend. She is convincing Caleb to go to your apartment, to pressure you until you cave. She says if they go together, if Caleb cries and begs enough, you will end up giving them the money out of pity. When do they plan to come? I asked with a tense voice. Today. Tonight. Veronica told Caleb she already called an Uber, that they only need $300,000 more to close the deal on the house, that it is their last chance. I looked at my watch. It was 5 in the afternoon. Catherine took my hand. Mrs. Eleanor, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but please, do not give them that money, not only because it is yours and you earned it, but because if you do, it will never end. My daughter is like a bottomless pit. As long as you have money, she is going to find ways to extract it from you. Why are you telling me all this? I asked, looking her directly in the eyes. Because I am tired of seeing my daughter destroy lives. Because Caleb seems like a good man, And he doesn't deserve this. And because you don't deserve to be treated like this at this stage of your life, where you should be calm and at peace. Catherine stood up from the bench. There is something else you should know. Veronica told Caleb that, if you don't give them the money today, she is going to leave him. She already has her bags packed. She is using the ultimatum as final pressure. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness so intense, I thought I was going to explode. Thank you for telling me all this, Catherine, she nodded. You don't have to thank me. I just ask you to be strong. I know he is your son, and this is painfully difficult, but you have to protect yourself. I went back to the bookstore and asked Mrs. Patterson for permission to leave early. When I got to my apartment, the first thing I did was call Ruth. They are coming tonight. Veronica and Caleb, with a final demand for $300,000. Ruth stayed silent for a few seconds. Do you want me to be there with you? No. I have to do this alone. But I need you on the phone, ready just in case. Count on it, friend. And Eleanor, remember, you owe them nothing. Absolutely nothing. I hung up and sat on my sofa to wait. I made myself a tea, although my hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the cup. I checked my phone. I had 3 messages from Caleb. Mom, we're on our way. We need to talk. Please be home. This is very important. It's our last chance. At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath. I stood up and walked toward the door. I looked through the peephole. There they were. Caleb looked wrecked, with deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, uncombed hair. Veronica, on the other hand, was impeccable, as always, in that champagne-colored dress that looked like a battle uniform, high heels, perfect makeup. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside to let them in. Hi, Mom, Caleb said, with a weak voice. Hello, Caleb. Veronica smiled at me, but it was a forced, calculated smile. Eleanor, thank you for seeing us. I know things have been tense, but we come to talk as family. Family? I repeated. Is that what you call the people you scam? Veronica's smile froze. Caleb looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, please. We need $300,000. It's urgent. The house we want to buy has other interested buyers. If we don't put down the deposit today, we lose it. And why should I give you that money? I asked, standing firm in the doorway. Veronica took a step forward. Because we are your family. Because Caleb is your only son. Because one day you are going to die and all that money won't do you any good in the grave. Because supposedly you love us. Supposedly? I said, feeling the rage starting to take control. Let me tell you something. Veronica, today I received a very interesting visit. Your mother came to see me. I saw Veronica's face go pale instantly. Caleb looked at her confused. Your mother? Why did your mother go to see my mom? Because your wife lied so well to her too. Because she went to ask your in-laws for $200,000 and they told her no. And because your mother-in-law, Catherine, had the decency to come warn me that you two were coming today with an ultimatum. Veronica stepped back, her mask of sweetness falling completely. Caleb looked at her, searching for an explanation. You went to ask your parents for money? Why didn't you tell me? Veronica shot me a look full of pure hate before turning to Caleb with an expression that tried to be innocent victimhood. Caleb, honey, I was going to tell you. It's just that your in-laws are as difficult as your mother. No one in your family understands that we need that money for our future. Our future? I repeated sarcastically. Do you mean the future where you spend $300,000 on beauty salons, expensive restaurants, and designer clothes, while lying to your husband about medical emergencies that never existed? Caleb looked at me, confused. What are you talking about, Mom? I walked into my apartment, left them standing in the doorway, and returned with the bank statements I had carefully kept in an envelope. Here, read. Read every line of how your wife spent the money that cost you so much to ask me for. Caleb opened the envelope with trembling hands and started to read. I saw how his eyes moved from line to line, how his expression went from confusion to disbelief, and finally to horror. La Fontaine Salon, $12,000. Le Petit Paris Restaurant, $8,000. Madame Chic Boutique, $23,000. His voice was fading with every amount he read. Veronica tried to snatch the papers from him. Caleb, that's not what it looks like. Those expenses were necessary for my work, to maintain a professional image. $12,000 at a beauty salon are necessary for your work? Caleb asked, and for the first time I heard real rage in his voice toward her. $8,000 at a single restaurant? You don't understand the pressure I have. I need to look good, feel good. Your mother has all that money saved without using it, while I have to sacrifice every day. Sacrifice? I exploded. You call spending the money my husband saved for 20 years on whims and luxuries a sacrifice? You call manipulating my son into asking me for money with lies a sacrifice? Veronica took a step toward me, with clenched fists. That money should belong to Caleb. He is your son. Everything you have should be his. Caleb is 35 years old and has a stable job. He doesn't need my money. What he needs is a wife who loves him for who he is, not for the access he has to his mother's bank account. Caleb was still looking at the statements, turning the pages over and over as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Veronica, this is too much. You told me the money was for emergencies, for important household expenses, and it was. I needed those things. You never give me enough with your salary. I always have to be asking, begging, justifying myself. You promised me a good life when we got married. I promised you a life together, based on what we can afford with our incomes. I didn't promise you to rob my mother to fund your whims. Veronica turned to him with tears in her eyes, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. Rob her? I didn't rob her of anything. You had legal access to that account. She gave you that money voluntarily. She gave it to me because I lied to her, Caleb said, and I saw how reality finally hit him. I told her it was for emergencies, for unforeseen expenses, and you spent it on restaurants and shoes, because you don't give me what I deserve. My friends have husbands who buy them luxury cars, who take them on vacation to Europe. And what do I have? A husband who has a millionaire mother and can't even buy me a decent dress. The silence that followed was deafening. Caleb looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time, as if he had finally removed the blindfold and saw the real person who had been in front of him all this time. That is what I am to you? He asked with a broken voice. A source of money? A way to get what you want? Veronica seemed to realize she had gone too far. She changed her tactic immediately, approaching him with outstretched hands. No, honey, it's not that. It's just that I'm stressed, frustrated. You know how much I love you. But we need that money for the house, to start our true life together. And the pregnancy? I asked, deciding to drop the final bomb. Did you also need the money for the baby that doesn't exist? Caleb froze. What? Veronica looked at me with pure hate. You don't know what you're talking about, you meddling old woman. I saw you a week ago, Veronica. I saw you at a restaurant with your friends, drinking champagne, in a dress that showed your completely flat stomach. A woman 3 months into a high-risk pregnancy doesn't drink champagne or wear tight clothes. Caleb stepped back, moving away from Veronica as if she burned. You lied to me about the pregnancy? You made me ask my mother for money for a baby that doesn't exist? Caleb, I can explain. There is nothing to explain, he shouted, and it was the first time in years I saw him truly angry. You have been using me. You turned me into a liar, into a thief. You made me lie to my own mother, manipulate her, hurt her. I didn't force you to do anything. You wanted to please me. You wanted to make me happy, because you made me believe that if I didn't do it, you would leave me. Always with the threats, always with the emotional blackmail. Do you love me? Then prove it. Get the money. Talk to your mother. If you don't do it, it's because you don't love me enough. Veronica crossed her arms, and her mask finally fell completely. There was nothing left of the feigned sweetness, only the real Veronica remained cold, calculating, ruthless. So what if I did? So what if I manipulated you? It worked, didn't it? I got what I wanted. The problem is that your pathetic mother decided to be selfish and turn off the money tap. My mother is not selfish, Caleb said with a firm voice. And for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. My mother worked her whole life, saved every dollar, lived with the minimum to secure her future. And I, her son, betrayed her. I manipulated her. I robbed her. He turned to me with tears running down his cheeks. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know at what moment I stopped being your son and became this. I felt my own heart breaking seeing him like that, destroyed, finally aware of what he had done. I wanted to hug him, tell him everything was okay, that I forgave him, but Ruth had taught me that sometimes love also means letting people face the consequences of their actions. Caleb, I appreciate your apologies, but apologies don't bring back the $300,000 that were spent. They don't erase the lies. They don't heal the pain of knowing my own son saw me as a walking bank. Veronica let out a bitter laugh. How dramatic! My God! Eleanor, you still have $500,000. It's not like we left you on the street. Stop playing the victim. Get out of my house, I said with a calm but firm voice. Now, both of you. With pleasure, Veronica spat. This miserable apartment depresses me anyway. Let's go, Caleb. We'll get the money another way. But Caleb didn't move. He stood there, looking at me, then looking at Veronica, as if he were seeing his entire life clearly for the first time. I'm not going with you, he said finally. Veronica turned to him, incredulous. What did you say? I said I'm not going with you. No more. It's over. Caleb, don't be ridiculous. Let's go home. We'll talk calmly, and tomorrow we'll come speak with your mother again. There is nothing to talk about. My mother told you no, and I am telling you it's over. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air. Veronica looked at him as if he had grown a second head. Divorce? Are you leaving me for this manipulative old woman who has you brainwashed? I'm not leaving you for my mother. I'm leaving you because I finally opened my eyes and saw who you really are. A liar, a manipulator, someone who never loved me, only loved what she could get out of me. Veronica looked at him with pure hate. Fine, perfect, but let the record show you decided this. And when you are alone, when you realize you threw away your marriage to protect your mommy's money, don't come begging me to come back. She turned around and walked out of the apartment, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. The silence that remained was absolute. Caleb stood in the middle of my living room, looking at the floor, with the bank statements still in his trembling hands. I don't know what to say, Mom. I don't know how to ask for your forgiveness for something so horrible. I sat on the sofa, feeling the weight of these months falling on me like an avalanche. Caleb, sit down. We need to talk for real. He sat next to me, keeping a respectful distance, as if he didn't feel entitled to be close to me. When your father died, the only thing he left me besides this apartment and memories was that money. $800,000 that represented every hour of overtime he worked, every dinner we skipped to save, every vacation we canceled. That money was his way of taking care of me even after death. My voice cracked, but I continued. And you, my son, the boy I carried in my arms, whom I raised with love and sacrifice, turned that legacy into fuel for the whims of a woman who doesn't even truly love you. Caleb started to cry silently, tears falling onto the papers he held. I know, Mom. I know, and I have no excuse. I let myself be blinded, manipulated. I was so obsessed with making Veronica happy that I forgot who I was. I forgot where I came from. I forgot everything you and Dad taught me about the value of money, about honesty, about respect. And now what, Caleb? What comes next? He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. Now I am going to divorce Veronica. I am going to find a lawyer tomorrow morning. And then, Mom, I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to pay you back those $300,000. I don't know how long it will take me, but every dollar I earn, every extra cent, will be for you. I swear it on Dad's memory. I looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity, searching for the son I thought was lost forever. I don't want your money, Caleb, I said finally, feeling the words come out heavy from my mouth. What I want is to get my son back, the honest man I raised, not the liar you became. Caleb nodded, wiping his tears. I am going to earn him back, Mom. I promise you. I am going to be the son I deserve to be again. He stayed silent for a moment, and then asked with a trembling voice, Can I hug you? I didn't answer with words. I simply opened my arms, and he let himself fall into them like when he was a boy and was afraid of storms. We cried together for what seemed like hours, hugged on that old sofa where we had shared so many happy moments before Veronica entered our lives like a destructive hurricane. When he finally pulled away, He looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I have to go, Mom. I have to go back to the apartment and get my things before Veronica does something crazy. Do you want Ruth to go with you? You shouldn't be alone with her right now. Caleb shook his head. No, it's okay. I need to face this alone. It's part of accepting the consequences of my actions. He stood up, walked to the door, and stopped at the threshold. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for setting boundaries even when it hurt you to do so. That was what saved me. When he left, I called Ruth immediately and told her everything. Oh, Eleanor, finally your son woke up. But don't lower your guard yet. Veronica isn't going to accept this quietly. She was right. At 2 a.m, my phone started ringing non-stop. It was Veronica. I let it ring until it stopped. Then the messages started arriving. This is your fault, you old witch. You destroyed my marriage. I hope you're happy now that you left your son alone. You are going to pay for this. I blocked her number and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. The next morning, I received a call from Caleb. Mom, last night when I got to the apartment, Veronica had destroyed all my things. She smashed my computer, ripped my clothes, broke my photos. I had to call the police. I felt the rage taking over me again. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? No. I left before things got worse. I'm at a hotel. Today, I'm going to look for a lawyer and start the divorce papers. Do you need money for the hotel? I asked, and bit my tongue immediately. After everything that had happened, my instinct was still to protect him. Caleb laughed bitterly. No, Mom. I have enough in my account to cover my expenses, and even if I didn't have it, I wouldn't ask you for anything. Those days are over. 2 weeks passed. Caleb called me every 2 days to tell me how the divorce process was going. Veronica was fighting every step, demanding financial compensation, claiming she had left job opportunities for the marriage, inventing debts that never existed. My lawyer says it could take months. Caleb told me one afternoon while we drank coffee in my apartment. He looked tired but calmer, as if he could finally breathe after years of being underwater. Veronica is demanding that I give her half of everything I have, including the money that, according to her, we invested together in our future. Is she referring to the money she stole from my account? Exactly. My lawyer told her that doesn't work that way, that money wasn't even mine to begin with, that it was a gift from my mother that she misappropriated. But Veronica insisted. One afternoon, while I was working at the bookstore, Catherine, Veronica's mother, walked in. She looked ashamed, with red eyes as if she had been crying. Mrs. Eleanor, can we talk? I took her to the small coffee shop next to the bookstore. We sat at a table in the back. I came to apologize again, Catherine began with a trembling voice, and to tell you that my husband and I have made a decision. We are going to pay you the $300,000 Veronica spent. My jaw dropped. Catherine, you don't have to do that. That is not your problem. Yes, it is, she insisted, wiping her tears. We raised that woman. We spoiled her. We gave her everything she wanted without teaching her the value of things. We are responsible for what she became, and although I know money doesn't erase the damage she caused, it is the least we can do. Catherine, I appreciate the gesture more than you can imagine, but I cannot accept that money. You didn't steal anything from me. It was Veronica. Catherine shook her head firmly. We already made the decision. We are going to sell our beach house, the one we bought for retirement. With that, we can pay you in full. Please, Mrs. Eleanor, let us do this. Let us at least try to repair a little of the damage our daughter caused. I looked into her eyes and saw so much pain, so much guilt, so much regret, that I finally nodded. Okay. But on one condition. That money does not come from you as payment of a debt. It comes as a gesture of goodwill between two families who were hurt by the same person. Catherine took my hands and squeezed them tight. Thank you. Eleanor, thank you for understanding. 2 days later, I received the wire transfer of $300,000 with a note that said, with our sincerest apologies and the hope that someday you can forgive our family. That night I called Caleb and told him. He stayed silent for a long time. Veronica's parents are good people. They didn't deserve to have a daughter like that. No one deserves that son. But sometimes life gives us burdens we didn't ask for, and we have to learn to carry them. A month later, Veronica appeared at my job. She stormed into the bookstore like a tornado, makeup smeared and hair disheveled, so different from the impeccable woman she had always been. "You! All this is your fault!" she screamed, pointing an accusing finger at me. Customers turned to look at us. "Mrs. Patterson came running out of her office. "Veronica, you have to leave," I said with a calm but firm voice. "I am not leaving until you listen to me. You destroyed my marriage. Caleb was perfect until you poisoned him against me. Caleb opened his eyes and saw who you really are. I didn't have to do anything." "Liar! You always hated me. From day one, you never gave me a chance." "I gave you many chances, Veronica. And each time you used them to lie, manipulate, and steal." Veronica took a step toward me with clenched fists. Mrs. Patterson stepped between us. "Young lady, if you do not leave my store right now, I am calling the police." "Call them. I don't care. This selfish old woman owes me $300,000. I don't owe you anything. You spent it on whims while lying about emergencies that never existed. And by the way, your parents already returned that money to me because they actually have shame and a sense of responsibility." Veronica's face turned red with fury. "My parents gave you money? How dare you accept it? That money was for my inheritance. That money belonged to your parents, and they decided to do the right thing with it, something you never learned to do." Veronica looked at me with so much hate I thought she was going to hit me, but instead she let out a hysterical laugh. "You know what? Keep your dirty money. Stay alone in your miserable apartment. I am going to find someone better than Caleb, someone who really has money and not just a stingy mother." "I wish you luck with that," I said sincerely. "I hope the next person you try to use is smarter than my son and sees you coming from a mile away." Veronica spat on the floor of the bookstore and walked out, slamming the door. The customers remained silent, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and compassion. Mrs. Patterson hugged me. "Oh, Eleanor, what a horrible woman. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Patterson. Better than fine, actually. Because finally that nightmare is over." That night, Caleb came to visit me. I told him what had happened. He shook his head with sadness. "I can't believe I married that woman, that I defended her, that I hurt my own mother for her." "Caleb, we all make mistakes. The important thing is that you learned from them. You know what is the saddest thing, Mom? That I actually thought I loved her. But now I realize that what I felt wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing her. And that fear turned me into someone I don't recognize. But now you are recovering the person you really are. And that is what matters." Caleb took an envelope out of his jacket. "Mom, this is for you." I opened the envelope. Inside was a cashier's check for $20,000. "Caleb, what is this?" "It's the first payment. I sold my car. The one Veronica insisted so much I buy. I bought a more modest used one, and this is what was left over. I know it's not much compared to the $300,000, but it's a start." I felt tears fill my eyes. "Son, you don't have to do this. Veronica's parents already returned the money to me. I know. You told me. But I still want to do this. I need to do this, not for you, but for me. I need to know I can rectify my mistakes, that I can be responsible for my actions." I looked at him with pride, finally seeing the man I had raised, the son I had always been proud of. "Then I accept, but on one condition. This money is going to go into a savings account for you, for when you really need it, for when you are ready to start a new life for real." Caleb smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I had seen in months. "Thanks, Mom, for not giving up on me, for loving me even when I didn't deserve it." 6 months passed since that night. Veronica entered my apartment demanding money. 6 months in which my life changed in ways I never imagined. Caleb's divorce was finally finalized. Veronica tried until the last moment to get money from the process, but the judge saw through her lies and manipulations. She received nothing. Caleb told me that the last time he saw her in court, she looked at him with so much hate it gave him chills. "I hope to never see her again in my life," he told me while we drank coffee in my apartment, something we now did twice a week religiously. Our relationship had transformed. It was no longer the mother and son relationship we had before, where I overprotected him and he accepted it without question. Now, it was something more mature, more honest. We talked about everything, his mistakes, my fears, how to rebuild the trust that had been broken. Ruth continued to be my rock, my confidant. One afternoon, while we walked through the park near my house, she told me something that made me think. Eleanor, you have spent 5 years guarding that money like it was a museum exhibit. Don't you think it's time you use some for yourself? To enjoy, to live. She was right. I had been so focused on protecting the money, on preserving my husband's legacy, that I had forgotten to live my own life. That night, I made a decision. The next morning, I went to the bank and spoke with Sergio, the manager who had helped me protect my accounts. I want to use $50,000 to remodel my apartment, and I want to set aside another $50,000 for a trip I always dreamed of taking. Sergio smiled. That seems like an excellent idea to me, Mrs. Eleanor. Your money is there to give you security, yes, but also to give you happiness. I hired a contractor recommended by Mrs. Patterson. In 2 months, my apartment went from being that humble and worn place to a beautiful, bright space full of life. I painted the walls warm colors, replaced the old furniture, installed new curtains that let the sunlight in. When Caleb saw the result, he was speechless. "Mom, this is incredible. You look so happy." "I am, son. For the first time in years, I feel at peace." Caleb was also rebuilding his life. He moved into a small but comfortable apartment. He started therapy to work on the behavioral patterns that had made him vulnerable to Veronica's manipulation and reconnected with old friends he had abandoned during his marriage. "My therapist says I had very low self-esteem," he told me one afternoon. "That's why I accepted Veronica's abuse. I thought I didn't deserve any better, that I was lucky someone like her was with me. But now you know the truth, right? That you deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you can give." "Yes, Mom. Now I know." 3 months after the remodel, I used part of the money I had set aside to take the trip I had always dreamed of, visiting my sister Margaret, who lived in London. I hadn't seen her in 15 years, since before my husband died. The reunion was magical. Margaret met me at Heathrow Airport with open arms and tears in her eyes. "Sister, how long has it been? I thought you would never decide to come." I spent a whole month in England. We visited museums, walked through ancient streets, ate in small pubs. We stayed up late talking about our lives, our regrets, our dreams. I told her everything about Caleb and Veronica. Margaret listened attentively, and then told me something I will never forget. "Eleanor, what you did was an act of true love. Tough love, but love nonetheless. You saved your son from himself." One night, while we were having dinner in a small restaurant overlooking the Thames, I received a text from Caleb. It was a photo of him smiling, holding a certificate. "Mom, I got promoted at work. I wanted you to be the first to know." I replied with tears in my eyes. "I am so proud of you, son. Your father would be too." When I returned home, I found my apartment full of flowers. Caleb had left them with a note that said, "Welcome home, Mom. I missed you." That night, we had dinner together, and he told me everything that had happened in my absence. "Mom, I met someone," he said shyly. My heart raced. "Really? Tell me." "Her name is Sarah. She's a librarian, works near my office. I met her when I went to return some books. She is different from Veronica in every sense. She is simple, honest, hard-working. She doesn't care that I don't have a luxury car or that I live in a small apartment. She just wants to get to know me, spend time with me." "And how do you feel?" "Scared," he admitted. "Scared of making a mistake again, of being manipulated again. But my therapist says that's normal, that it's part of the healing process. And Sarah is very patient with me, very understanding. I would like for you to meet her someday. She would like to meet you too. In fact, she talks about you a lot." I told her the whole story, and she told me she admires your strength. 2 weeks later, Caleb brought Sarah to dinner. She was a woman of 30, with a genuine smile and kind eyes. She wore a simple gray dress and flats. She had no expensive jewelry or exaggerated makeup. She was natural, authentic. During dinner, we talked about books, about the bookstore where I work, about her job at the library. She didn't mention money once. She didn't ask where Arthur lived or what kind of car Caleb drove. She just talked about real things, simple dreams, modest plans. When they left, I called my friend Ruth and told her, I think my son finally found someone good. Thank God, she replied. He deserves it after everything that happened. Months kept passing. My life found a new rhythm, calmer, happier. I kept working at the bookstore because I liked it, not because I needed to. Mrs. Patterson had offered me a raise, but I told her it wasn't necessary. I work here because it makes me happy to be surrounded by books and people who love reading, I explained. One day, while organizing the romance novel section, a young woman walked in with a baby in her arms. She looked tired, desperate. She approached the counter where I was. "Excuse me, are you hiring? I need work urgently. My husband left us and I have to support my baby." I looked at her and saw in her eyes the same fear I had felt so many times in my life. "Let me talk to the owner," I told her with a smile. I convinced Mrs. Patterson to give her a chance. Over the following weeks, I helped the young woman, whose name was Ashley, learn the job. I gave her advice. I lent her money when she needed it. I told her everything was going to be okay. "Why are you so good to me?" she asked me one day with tears in her eyes. "Because someone was good to me when I needed it. And because we women have to help each other." One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after my trip to London, Caleb arrived at my apartment with Sarah and news. "Mom, we have something to tell you." My heart jumped. "We're getting married," Caleb announced with a huge smile. Sarah showed me the ring. Simple, modest, beautiful. "It's nothing fancy," she apologized. "But it's what we could afford with our savings." "It's perfect," I said, hugging her. "Absolutely perfect." The wedding was small, intimate, in an outdoor garden. There were no excessive expenses or unnecessary luxuries. Just close friends, family, true love. During the ceremony, when I saw Caleb looking at Sarah with genuine adoration, I knew he had finally found what really mattered. In his toast, Caleb looked directly at me. "Mom, thank you for loving me enough to tell me no. Thank you for setting boundaries even when it hurt you to do so. Thank you for teaching me that true love isn't bought with money. It is built with respect, honesty, and commitment." I couldn't hold back the tears. After the ceremony, while everyone danced and celebrated, I sat for a moment alone on a garden bench. Ruth sat next to me. "You did it, Eleanor. You got your son back." "No," he recovered himself. "I just helped him see the path." "You are too modest. What you did required enormous courage." I looked at Caleb dancing with his new wife, smiling in a way I never saw him smile with Veronica. I thought about the whole road we had traveled, all the tears shed, all the pain endured, and I knew it had been worth it. 2 months after the wedding, Caleb and Sarah gave me news that filled my heart with joy. They were going to have a baby. This time, it was real. This time, there was no manipulation and lies, only genuine love and the excitement of 2 people who really wanted to form a family together. "Mom, we want to ask you something," Caleb said during dinner in my remodeled apartment. "Anything, son. We want you to be the godmother. And we want, if it's a girl, for her to be named Roberta, in honor of the grandfather she will never meet, but whose legacy will always protect her." Tears ran down my cheeks. My husband, Arthur, the man who worked 20 years to secure our future, would be proud. His granddaughter would bear a version of his middle name, Robert. His money, protected with such care, could now be used to truly help, for important things, for the new generation that was about to arrive. That night, when Caleb and Sarah left, I sat on my new sofa, in my beautiful apartment, and looked at the photos of my husband hanging on the freshly painted wall. "We did it, Arthur," I whispered. "We saved our son. We protected your legacy. And now I can finally live in peace." The next day, I went to the bank to see Sergio. "I want to open a savings account for my future granddaughter," I told him. "I want to deposit $100,000 so that when she turns 18, she has a backup for college or for whatever she needs." Sergio smiled while processing the transaction. "Your husband would be proud of you, Mrs. Eleanor." "I know, and I am proud of myself. Because after all the pain, all the lies, all the manipulation, I had learned the most important lesson of my life. True love is not giving everything they ask for. It is having the courage to say no when necessary. It is protecting what is yours without guilt. It is setting boundaries even when it hurts. It is knowing that your value is not in your money, but in your dignity, your strength, your capacity to survive and flourish even in the most difficult circumstances. I looked out the bank window toward the street full of people, each with their own battles, their own pains, their own victories. And I knew that my story, although painful, had ended well. I had my beautiful apartment, my job that I loved, my friendship with Ruth that sustained me, my recovered son, a wonderful daughter-in-law, and soon a granddaughter who would carry a piece of my husband's name. I had $500,000 still in the bank, protected, safe, waiting to be used for things that truly mattered. And more importantly, I had my dignity intact, my self-esteem restored, and the peace of mind of knowing I had done the right thing, even when the whole world told me I was wrong. Veronica was gone from our lives forever. Caleb told me he heard she married another man, someone with a lot of money. I hope he is smarter than me, Caleb said. I hope he sees who she is before it is too late. I hoped so too. Not for Veronica, who would never change, but for that poor man who was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. But that was no longer my story. My story was this one, that of a 63-year-old woman who refused to be a victim, who set boundaries, who protected what was hers, and who in the end found the peace and happiness she deserved. The story of Eleanor, who finally learned that loving your son doesn't mean giving him everything he asks for, but teaching him to be a man of honor, integrity, and respect. And that lesson, more than any amount of money, was the true legacy my husband and I left our son.